Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of The Crowded Booth Live. Will Manis and Ralph Leary on either side of me as we get ready for another episode. And guys, Will, you weren't with us on Monday, but we had a great episode talking about the news that happened last week and then kind of the news that's this week. So it's been a pretty good week to have a show and talk about this stuff after a little bit of a layoff. So first off, Will, how you been doing, my man? You been doing good?
I've been good. I was out of town with you last week. Had a good time down in Florida. We won't talk about the end of that trip, but
no, sir, not whatsoever.
But no, it was good to go, and just kind of not be home for a week, and good time to recharge the batteries with good people. So, really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is we got to enjoy some great weather. A little toasty, I'll say that. It got hot.
Oh, it was warm.
That's for sure. Ralph, how about you, my man? We were on the show on Monday, but how's the week treating you so far?
It's been nice, actually. Work's been going kind of well. It was cool this morning, so it wasn't awful. So it's been pretty good this week.
Pretty good this week, indeed. Well, across the sports landscape, we have seen on the college football side, we really realize there is no real offseason in college football whatsoever. Obviously, the playoff conversation we had on Monday today brings us back to the Diamond. Our podcast coming out on Friday will be about the College World Series that we're obviously excited to cover and everything. But for today, we're going to stick with the major leagues, guys. And I think the biggest news coming out is kind of want to get your opening thoughts on this, as MLB has kind of officially cracked down on pitchers using, and I wanted to use quotation, foreign substances. So want to get you guys' take on this. To me, there's multiple schools of thought. The two most prominent ones are pitchers should have the same ability that some people do, while batters batters get to use all these different types of items. Can pitchers use a little bit? And then the other thing is just follow the rules. So I want to lead it off with Will. Will, where do you kind of stand on this? I mean, obviously, I think for years pitchers have been using stuff. And I guess specifically, do you have an issue with the sunscreen and the rosin, or is it more of when we get to what stands out to me was 5 years ago, Michael Pineda with literally the pine tar on his hat kind of thing?
Yeah, no, I don't have a whole lot of issue like with sunscreen and rosin. From what I know, because I've got some buddies that have actually got to hold a Major League Baseball catching a foul ball or something like that. I have not been lucky enough to get one, but apparently they're very slick and they're extremely hard to have a grip on. Guys are throwing 100 miles an hour, throwing balls that break across both sides of the plate. They need to have some grip, and they're obviously out there sweating. You play in Atlanta, you play in Texas, even though it's a little bit dry. You play in Florida, even though they're kind of indoors, both of them now. There's humidity. I mean, you're going to sweat. It's hard to grab the ball. And so I think they should get something. But really interesting, the other night on MLB Network, they have a little segment they call Diamond Demos on their show MLB Tonight. They had Pedro Martinez in the studio, and he did a demo with a rosin bag. They had an actual rosin bag in the studio. And he shows on camera, and the rosin is actually very sticky. I mean, you can hear his fingers sticking together, and he's rubbing them together just like this. So it's really cool. It's on YouTube if you want to check that out. But I just think it's very interesting what the MLB decides is actually cheating and against the rules, and what they let pass by. Like, to me, hitters using steroids, performance-enhancing drugs to get stronger, hit the ball farther, that's cheating. I mean, but for 15 years, when it was so prominent in the 90s, early 2000s, it's like they didn't care. And now they crack down on it hard, and pitchers they want to get a grip. Now the spider tack stuff, the stuff they buy off the market to get grip, I don't like that. I don't like pine tar. But, I mean, if you're mixing sunscreen and rosin, it can't have much effect on the ball other than you just getting a grip because they've had rosin bags for years.
Yeah. No, they've had rosin bags for years, and kind of like deeper dive into it. The rosin bag is literally to just kind of take away the moisture that is there. So it's whether it's sweat on the arm. It's not necessarily something that by itself is sticky. Like you said, there's a little bit, but it's not like that spider tack stuff you're talking about. It's literally like glue almost that the guy's got on the hand where he can manipulate the ball. But like you also said, Will, I think what was a very big point was these guys are throwing harder. The game has changed the past 10 to 15 years where we're seeing guys being able to break stuff off, curveballs and all these different types of off-speed pitches with more velocity than we've ever seen before. So, Ralph, going over to you now, I mean, is this something that are you kind of okay with, how it's going, or is there kind of a double standard across the league of what this has created?
Well, I think what Will said was perfect. I mean, it's just spot on. We saw what Tyler Glasnow said. He's injured now because he had to actually grip his fastball and curveball a lot harder on the ball, which caused his muscles to be that he doesn't use as much because he's been using a different kind of grip with I think he said sunscreen and rosin he always used, which I feel like should be legal. I mean, if you can wear sunscreen during a game, you should be able to have it on your hands, while you're pitching. And I don't see what the big deal was with that in the first place. Hitters use pine tar on their bats. Pitchers should be able to use the same thing. It's baseball. If it's fair play to me, I think it should stay the same. Obviously spider tack is a like Will said, off the market. You buy it, you use it. It's a lot. It's a lot better for a pitcher to use that and control everything. We saw what Garrett Cole said. He was dumbfounded by a question in an interview, and it stunned him. He just kind of sat there and didn't know what to say. I thought it was probably the funniest thing is how do you not know that's coming? They're going to ask you, have you used spider tag? And then he just said, I don't know how to answer that. And so I'm just, it's bad. It's really bad on the MLB to be cracking down on this right now.
I want to say something about Tyler Glasnow's comment. I didn't really like how he's blaming the MLB for his injury. I get it. It's frustrating. I think that comes from him just being frustrated and looking for somebody to blame for that. And, whether it's because he can't use sunscreen and rosin or not, I don't think you should blame MLB for that because a torn UCL, I think that's more of a freak thing than anything else. And but I get it. You got to grip the ball harder. I get it.
Well,
but
I will say this.
I just don't agree. I just don't agree with him blaming the league.
I will say this. So before in his interview, he said, I probably had my best outing all year. He went 7 strong with 1 run and 11 Ks without using any substance. And that shows you how good of a pitcher he is, for one. Right. It also shows you the difference of he had to work a lot harder to make his ball spin, to throw a little bit harder. He had to work hard for that. Obviously, absolutely, everyone should work harder to be good at their sport. But sometimes you have to use something to get a little more grip, get a little more spin to the ball. But he also said, my hands are big enough to spin the ball enough. I don't have to worry about spin rate or anything like that. So I feel
go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, I feel like it's overhyped of how much sunscreen and rosin are to control a baseball. I don't think that's a big deal.
I'm just very interested to see because I don't, to my knowledge, I highly doubt there's any data to this. Like, how much does sunscreen and rosin affect your spin rate and your velocity? Does it at all? So if it doesn't, why is that illegal? Why is that in foreign substance that they're saying? And then another thing about Glasnow, part of his comments were, I think it was spring training or before the start of spring training, they had a big conference call with union reps, agents, league representatives. He said there was not a single hitter or anybody represented by a hitter that was against the pitchers using sunscreen and rosin.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this, again, shows, along with this and moving the All-Star game, that Major League Baseball is not really listening to the players right now. And, the further along this goes, the further down the line we get through the season, when the union deal runs out, that there will be a strike. I know I'm kind of getting way ahead of myself and kind of putting it out there, but just when they moved the All-Star game, I think it was like 60 players they talked to. There's over like 1,000 players. I
mean, there's 26 on every active roster, 40-man rosters. You take that times
30 teams.
It's a lot. It's a lot.
60 is less than 5%, probably less than 1%. I can't do math in my head. But the league, they're just not listening to the players. And if they would have listened, they would say, okay, you can use the sunscreen and rosin. We're not going to put it out there because – and I don't get it. Cheaters, there's been cheaters in the game forever. Everybody's looking for a competitive advantage. If pitchers just won't grip, I don't know how that's really a competitive advantage because like we've talked about, hitters get pine tar to hold on to the bat. I don't get it. I don't get what the MLB deems as fair and illegal.
Yeah, and I think the biggest thing, you go back to those player reactions for Glass now. I mean, it's almost like, I can only cheat when I think the tone of how he complained is what rubbed a lot of people wrong. You know what I mean? Like it's almost, and I want to say like Carlos Correa and the whole, like everyone feels bad for, no one feels bad for you. Like, you know what I mean? Like they had, and honestly, they had a cool run in the playoff. No one felt bad for you. And that's the thing, no one felt bad for you, but Glass now in the aspect, I mean, you never want to see a guy, bright young arm, well on his way to, I feel like at some point in his career, he was going to have a Cy Young, maybe here in this year or next year. But he was very, very good. You hate to see that. And then Trevor Bauer, obviously the character that he is, comes out and, I don't know if you guys saw the video where he sticks the ball to his hand and all it was rosin and sunscreen. So, I think it begs the question of this is, to me, guys, this is really just a crisis management gone wrong for Manfred and Major League Baseball. We've talked over and over again on this show how Major League Baseball has just fallen short, I think, of ways to handle things dating back to, we'll talk about just in our show's lifetime, just talking about the Astros scandal. I mean, that's been a big thing is I think even Bauer has even said this, you're going to implement this, but you didn't do anything about them blatantly cheat. Like the bar for cheating, and Will, you pointed out steroids. The only thing about the steroids thing is the guy's still got to be able to time up and hit the fastball, which is still a hard thing to do.
No,
what the Astros were doing were blatantly, when you tell a guy who is at the top of the craft and the best of the best in the world what pitch is coming, that's a whole big difference. So I think it's all that's the problem. And like you said, Will, we're going to come to a head at some point, being this offseason when the current CBA runs out, where that's what's going to happen is these players are going to say, and in their own right, yeah, you're going to suspend us for 10 games, which in reality is 2 starts for a starter if they do have that 5-man rotation. But you do that, and then it's just really interesting to see how the players are going to continue to react, because this will be a blip on the radar, and then come December when the CBA expires, it's going to be a bullet point number 2 of, hey, this is a big issue. And like you said, I think that, Peter Moylan literally just tweeted, Braves analyst, former pitcher in the major leagues. He said, if pitchers, if you want to let it happen, pitchers let them have this, and hitters don't ever have to, test for, do drug testing ever again. And let's just play. Let's don't worry about it. And it's just one of the things where I think it goes, and we talk about the marketability of the sport, and I think it really hurts it.
Yeah. It's interesting. I don't know if y'all saw Pete Alonso's comments. I think they were last week or early this week sometime. Really like the conspiracy theory. And I don't know how much I believe it, but, the big home run trend of the last 2 seasons, there were a lot more pitchers going to be hitting the free agent market. Now we're seeing more hitters that their contracts are coming up this year, and nobody can hit the ball.
Yeah.
I mean, I think there's something to it, but I don't know like how much truth there is to that.
Well, and what you said, what was crazy was, I think a day later, the Mets front office, some of their members, I don't remember exactly who it was, were like, oh, that's not happening. It's just a weird look. And, we should have one show where we just talk about, we should have a podcast episode where it's just like, what is your craziest sports conspiracy theory and why do you think it's true? But I think, it's definitely something, but I'll be honest with you. I have zero problem with a pitcher trying to get a little more grip. Like you said, Will, it's very slick. Ralph put me on the Starting 9 podcast, Dallas Braden, who's obviously threw a no-hitter. He knows what it takes to be, have one of the big moments in history. And he equated this. People don't realize, we all play baseball. They call a pearl. That's not what they get. These balls are rubbed up with mud. And think about that. What does wet dirt become? It becomes dry dirt. Okay. What is dry dirt? You can't grip anything like that. It's essentially so slick. So that's why you see these guys go to these things to just get a little bit. He's even said that's why you see guys lick their 2 fingers right here to try just to get a little bit of moisture so they can get a grip on the baseball. I have no problem with that. But like you were talking about, I think there's got to be a line, and this is where Major League Baseball has fallen short. There's got to be a line where we just say, okay, that's okay. Then like you both of you guys were saying, the spider tack, that's when we get pine tar, these other things that really enhance it. Because I'm going to tell you, I've never seen, spider tack or anything like that, but I would say to wonder, if you're talking about that in pine tar with how sticky it is, the amount of movement that you could put on a ball and the difference would be ridiculous. Now, we talk about, rosin and sunscreen. I don't think that necessarily affects it to the fact of where guys are just, batting averages that are all-time low this year. We're Braves fans. We've seen that big time in the Braves lineup. So I think that's anything. But any, kind of final thoughts on this, guys, before we head to commercial?
No, I'm good.
No, you're good. You're good. Well, listen, we come back. We're going to talk a little about those Braves. Obviously, Major League Baseball as a whole, the offensive numbers are down. But we come back, we're going to talk about the Braves, the inconsistencies that they've had, and maybe look ahead to some deals. We talked about it a week or 2 weeks ago with starting pitching. But since then, I think there's a lot more issues that need to be addressed with this Atlanta roster. But we'll talk about that when we come back.
Cook's Place began serving our signature hot dogs in 1985 from a cart on Broadway. We still serve the best hot dogs and scrambled dogs in town at the corner of Moon and Miller Road and at the landings. Our friendly staff won't let you leave hungry. Come in and eat to the beat with our 50s jukebox. Cook's Place, fast service, great people, awesome food. What are you waiting for?
Back here on the Crowded Booth, we appreciate you tuning in on a fine Wednesday evening. If you haven't already, go ahead and check us out at thecrowdedbooth.com. We had a big domino fall, especially in the Chattahoochee Valley area, with Michael Williams heading out west to USC. He was impressed by the visit. Ralph with a quick little write-up of there, and we're going to talk to him later on this week, early next week, to get his thoughts on what he thought about Southern California. Guys, quickly, I'll tell you one thing. If you've lived in Columbus, Georgia all your life, I love Columbus, Georgia. But, man, if you get a chance to go play college football out in Southern California, I don't blame you. I don't blame you. I think that'd be a fun place to play. But we're sticking with the baseball theme today. Obviously, the Atlanta Braves are 2-3 minutes away from first pitch, if I'm correct. It's 7:20 first pitch. And Ian Anderson on the mound. Listen, guys, this has been a year that it's really easy to say. And, Will, you called it early. It's just not Atlanta's year. And I want to run down through some of the things that they've been hurt by. Obviously, their NL Silver Slugger Award catcher was struggling early in the season. Halfway through the month of April, goes down. He won't be back until August. Obviously, the Marcelo Zuna situation is what it is. You have two guys that weren't really even in the outfield picture in spring training or late into spring training that are starting in your outfield. And all credit to them. I know Ralph and I've been to a couple games. We've joked Guillermo Heredia. They've been about what we thought they were, replacement level guys, and then obviously Abraham Almonte, and then just some of the
where's the video of Dennis Green? We need that video.
Yes, exactly. Yeah,
they are who we thought they were.
They are who we thought they were. And then you bring it. Obviously, Freddie Freeman has had a very weird year. His expected batting average on the balls he's put in play is like over 300. He's batting 240, and he's batted 290 over the past week. So that's an encouraging sign. But he's frustrated. The good news, let's go to the good news. Austin Riley having a fantastic year. He seemingly turned a corner, established himself as a franchise type of player.
If you get online and vote for Austin Riley, because the Braves need a bright spot. Vote for him so he can start the All-Star game for the Braves.
He's in fifth place, and he's in fifth place right now. And
whoa!
Unfortunately,
what?
Yes, so they have.
It's because Chris Bryant is being voted as a third baseman. He played outfield all year long.
So they got Bryant. They have Chris Bryant.
Take Chris Bryant out. He's still fourth. He's been the second.
Arenado,
at minimum the third best third baseman in baseball.
Hey,
not just the National League, in all of baseball.
You got to love the fan votes. Ronald Acuna Jr., leading vote getter for the NL All-Star team, over 800,000 votes. So anyways, there's some positives. Ozzie Albies, he's been kind of streaky on and off, but lately he's been pretty good for Atlanta. And Dansby Swanson, probably the streakiest player on the entire Braves roster. He can go 12 games without a hit, then he'll go 15 where he's got like 6 home runs and batting 400. Anyways, the big problem is, guys, and the Braves have just been really plagued by inconsistencies. Will, you talked about in April, we were getting to the month, and I keep alluding to it because it was just an issue. So we're going to talk about the ownership in the front office, but really, I don't know if we could have predicted the amount of regression that we've seen from this pitching staff, starters in. Now, I know obviously the bullpen, we've talked about it, and you said it, the depth was not there. It wasn't there. This was a bullpen that was not 6 or 7 deep that you felt comfortable going into a playoff series against. But you had to think AJ Minter was fantastic at the end. He was going to be great. You get Chris Martin back. He's been good. I mean, obviously, he's come back from injury. He had the blow up the other night or last night. But I mean, other than that, this pitching staff has just seen such a regression that I think it's startling, and it really calls into question of, I would say, and we're going to talk about the trade deadline, so don't get to that, but I would say that at some point Atlanta's going to have to sit there and say to themselves, we've got these young guys, but at some point, if we really want to win a World Series, we're going to have to go pay for a big dollar person. So don't talk about ownership, don't talk about trade deadline, but were you surprised by, say, the amount of regression that we saw across the board, everyone except, and we'll say it, Luke Jackson?
Oh, definitely not Luke Jackson. I mean, I've been saying for 3 years he's the best reliever on the team. But to be honest, not really. AJ Minter, I was hopeful that he would take the next step, but I was always a little worried that he would come back down to earth to where he is. Like you say it all the time, you look at the back of the baseball card. That's who the players are. Last year's a 60-game season, 60-game sprint. He had a great 60, however many games played, 70 games, including the playoffs. Was incredible. He was great. Hopefully he took that next step, but he's back to where he has been throughout his career. And he's still young. He's got plenty of time. It's not time to pull the plug on AJ Minter. But Will Smith, last year, funky year, COVID year, whatever. He didn't pitch that great when he finally got to the team, and he hasn't pitched great this year. And you committed a lot of money to him to be your closer. That's very disappointing. Chris Martin, like you said, it's just injuries with Chris Martin. When Chris Martin is healthy and when he's on, he's one of the best late inning relievers in baseball. Tyler Matzik, again, look at the back of the baseball card. Last year was incredible. This year he's taken that step back. He's been good. He's shown flashes. Shane Green, guy that weird situation why he wasn't signed. I don't really know what that was about. I think he priced himself out of what any team in the world was wanting to give him because nobody in Japan wanted him either. So it's going to take time for him to get back into the swing of it. And like you said, you got young guys. You've got unproven depth, and I applaud them for taking a shot on some guys. Jacob Webb is a guy, I think the big one that comes to mind. I have a lot of faith in Jacob Webb. I think he can be really good. He's got good stuff. He's just got to get it right between the ears, and that's a huge thing for relief pitchers. But it's just disappointing. I mean, like I said a couple weeks ago, it's just not the Braves' year. I mean, every bad luck thing that could happen seems to be happening for the Braves.
It is. And then, Ralph, you could take the approach of this team's only 6 games out. Baseball's such a weird game. And I think what's going to keep it's such a weird game. They're 4 games under 500 before they play tonight. And 2, nobody's really decided to run away with the East. So, Ralph, Will kind of gave us and for all right reasons, the pessimistic view. But I want you to give us the optimist view for your Ralph, because baseball's a thing.
Please do.
If you have a really good 2 weeks, and we know that this team can, the talent's there, then they're right back in this thing. So what would you say that Braves fans have to look forward to? Obviously, Shane Green being, getting more into and acclimated to what in the bullpen, that could be something positive.
Well, yeah, that's one thing. This bullpen's just been, awful. It's been beat up all year. It just hasn't been consistent. They show signs of, great weeks, and then the weekend they come around, they get smacked around. It's never the same. But a few good things that Braves fans should look forward to is they're getting d'Arnaud back in August. I know that sounds like it's so far away, and toward the end of the season, d'Arnaud and Eno will be back at the same time. But there also has been a little bit of rumors I saw on Twitter that Mike Soroka could return in August. Obviously, I know that's probably not going to happen. It's a weird year for him. He's been banged up by injuries and surgeries, but they said he's been throwing a little bit, and it's something that could happen. And obviously, a lot of Braves fans want to see Soroka pitch, but then again, do you want to see him pitch and get hurt again? It's up in the air for me. If he's 100%, let him go. If he's not, don't let him go. But Braves fans, if the Braves can get 2 weeks of just solid baseball where they're winning and they're not blowing saves, the bullpen's not getting hit hard, you're looking at a team that's competing for first place still. This NL East, like you said, has not ran away with it yet. No one has. It's not in NL West. The top 3 teams are just beating up on everyone right now, and they're just all 3 are the best teams in baseball. NL East is the bottom part of the National League right now. It feels like all teams are struggling at some point. Mets can't hit, Nationals can't hit. Nationals lose their best pitcher for a while. It's just like everything. One team can be really good, one team can be really bad. It's just up and down all year long.
Yeah, and I think that you hit the nail right on the head. Everyone in this division, even the Marlins, feels like if they get hot for 2 or 3 weeks or they have a great month, they are at the top of the division. Now, the hard thing that I know Braves fans on Twitter are going to have to realize is that the Braves could somehow find them ways in contention, but I don't think that this roster constructed as is could advance in the playoffs. Maybe a first round if they get lucky and somebody emerges, but this right now, the benchmark is the Dodgers. And so that's what Atlanta's going to keep looking at for the past 3 years. And so Atlanta's not happy with just an NL East title. But I wanted to go back to what you said, Will, about
the other thing real quick, the Braves were 1 game away from the World Series last year. That's your benchmark.
Yeah.
Get the World Series, win the National League. You're 1 game away, 1 pitcher away.
Yeah.
In my opinion, 1 pitcher
100%.
away. And then you let a couple of them walk, and now you're back to where you were a couple of years ago. You're going to have to buy relievers at the deadline if you're even in position to do that, which the way it looks now, and I know I'm being a pessimist about it, I don't think the Braves are going to be in position to be trading for relievers. They need too much.
Yeah, they do need a lot. One thing you were talking about, Luke Jackson, the big thing with him, obviously, I want to read this real quick because he has a 1.07 ERA as of right now. And
you don't know how good that makes me feel, that stat.
So listen to this. Only 4 major league relievers right now, including Craig Kimbrell, who's having a fantastic season, and Josh Hader have an ERA lower. And then Melanson's obviously one of those, but it's in 1 less appearance. But I also say this, the big thing about Luke Jackson, and I didn't even kind of really realize this, is, well, when he comes in with runners on, when he inherits runners, that's where he's hurt. Well, he's come in, he's inherited 15 runners, 6 of them scored. That's not terrible. I mean, it's you would love for that number to be low, but with how good he's been, that's
good. I mean, I would say 6 for 15 is good. Yeah, I'm biased toward Luke Jackson, but I think if you wouldn't have told me his name, I'd still say that's pretty good. Because a lot of time when a relief pitcher is inheriting runners, they're already in scoring position. Mm-hmm. And 1 swing means that guy's coming in. But that's the thing about Luke. If he can just control the walks and just find the strike zone, but I don't want him to throw more strikes because his stuff is so good. He doesn't have to throw strikes to get guys to swing at it.
Yeah, his slider is one of the best in the bigs, honestly, when it's on. Guys, we're talking about the trade deadline. Will, I like this because you talked about there's too many holes to fill. So let's go hypothetical.
Well, that's the problem. There's not a hole. It's just the guys have to perform to what we're used to seeing.
They just haven't executed.
That's the thing. They haven't executed. I think the only big hole is spots on the pitching staff. I've said for several years the Braves need to go get a 1 or a 2 to be the Braves number 1 because the Braves don't have a number 1, which we've talked about it before off the show. There's only a handful of number 1s across baseball, true number 1s, and they're nearly impossible to get. But the only holes I see are pitching staff. The offense should be a lot better. They just got to hit the ball.
This is an offense that scored 8 runs last night and still lost. We haven't even seen the best of Freddie Freeman. And so, listen, and even talking about the corner outfield spots, Alex Anthopoulos did a sit-down interview with Jeff Schultz of The Athletic, and it was fantastic because he said, listen, he literally said this, and this was not in the interview transcript, but this was under a tweet where someone had asked him. He said, this is not a video game. You can't force trades on other teams. They have to want to trade those. So it's not at this juncture in the season. We don't see a ton of big trades happen right now. Now, I would say a month from now is when the domino will fall. We always see around July 15th, that first trade. And for the next 2 weeks up until the trade deadline, it's a flurry. So the big question is the right person has to be available. And I'll say this too. Ralph and I were talking about this. Atlanta is still, save for, we'll say, Freddie Freeman on the offensive side, extremely young, extremely talented. So it's not like this is a World Series or bust year for the Braves. So it's interesting. I don't think, as crazy it is, the upcoming free agent class has got some really nice additions right there. But I'll go to you, Ralph, first on this. What would you want? I mean, I think the ideal thing was to get a reliever and maybe a starter and just kind of see what happens, because the Braves may find themselves in this zone of where they're hovering around 500. And let's go hypothetical. They're hovering around 500. They're 3.5, 4 out. So you can either play it safe or you can get really aggressive. But what does that net you? And I think we're going to have to understand, too, that person has to be available. We can't just throw off. And I know we've talked about this too. Max Scherzer would be fantastic. Well, what if the Nationals are hovering a game or two under 500 and no one's ran away with it yet? They're not going to want to trade it away. So it's just such a thing that we have to know. We have to know. So Ralph, maybe it's not a specific person, but a need that you would just like to see be kind of filled with somewhere.
Well, I think the big one obviously is bullpen. I mean, you want to get bullpen pitchers. You need someone who can go in there and be elite, if you want to say that. But starting rotation has been banged up. Everyone's getting injured. You have Inoa who breaks his hand for a stupid reason. Let's just be honest with it. Soroka goes down beginning of the year. You weren't even ready for him this year, honestly. And you just have a lot of young guys who keep coming in and keep flushing in, who are doing well. Tucker Davison's pitched well. He got hurt last night. Bryce Wilson's pitched well this year. But you want someone in there who can stay in that line, in that rotation. Drew Smiley's been up and down all year. And I do have one name for a starting pitcher. Kyle Gibson with the Rangers. He has been very, very good this year with a 2.09 ERA and a 4-0 record right now. He's playing for the Rangers. They're not competing for anything. He's in his second year of his contract. It's not like it's a hard person to go get, but it wouldn't be a bad pickup, I don't think.
Yeah, and the thing is too, if Atlanta's sitting in that middling situation where they feel like they don't want to sell the farm, because this is what's going to happen. And let's just be honest, when August rolls around, the term that Braves fans hate is going to be, well, having Inoa, having d'Arnaud back is just like adding somebody at the deadline. But the fact that it is true, you're adding an arm that was helping you out early in the year. So to me, it's not the sexy move. I mean, honestly, the Braves could go to Texas and just say, hey, we'll take this, 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 and this, and we'll come back. I mean, honestly, they really could do that. But, I mean, to me, Will, I was kind of page you. Offense to me, like I feel like they can manage through it. They've got the bat still. It's not as deep as it was. You're going to have to ask some guys to step up. But to me, you have to get a starter because we've seen so much this year. When the starters go later, that helps. When the starters don't go just late, that's when the bullpen falters.
Right. Well, I got a couple directions I want to go, and starter is not one of them. But I do see the need for it. But I think if Anthopoulos can work the magic like he did a few years ago, bringing in Shane Green and Chris Martin, you get two stoppers in the bullpen, guys that just come in and get outs. I don't have any in mind because they're all over. Relief pitchers are everywhere. Even the Orioles, the Pirates, the Mariners. The bad teams have great relief pitchers, so you can find them anywhere. Mm-hmm. And then the other one, I think a corner outfielder. I hated that they let Adam Duvall walk. I think Adam Duvall would be probably the best left fielder in baseball right now if he was in the Braves lineup again. But I like Guillermo Heredia. He swung the bat well. Ender Inciarte is a great fourth outfielder, but he's having to start now. Yeah, Christian Pache has a ton of upside if he can figure out major league hitting or pitching. But there's another guy in AAA that could fill that role that the Braves brought back who they actually traded away last year and brought back in Travis Demerit, a guy that they've between the Braves and the Tigers both have kind of worked him second base, third base, left field, right field, just a utility guy. And then there's another guy. You said it, the term nobody likes to hear. Adding this guy coming back is like making a trade. Tuki Toussaint. Yeah. He made a rehab appearance last night for Rome, or it could be tonight.
It was last night, yeah.
Okay, so he's close to coming back, and he'll probably slide right into that bullpen. I think he would be a nasty reliever. I mean, because he's really only got a fastball and a curveball, and that's all you need in relief. Mm-hmm. I think he could be a disgusting back end of your bullpen guy. Maybe not your closer, but I think he'd slide right in that bullpen and be really successful.
Yeah, and I think, too, it's just when you talk about corner outfielders, it so much depends on the Azuna situation. Obviously, they can't speak on that. You don't know how much you're going to have to pay for that. But I've actually got a couple candidates that I want to go with. So, actually, I'm going to go first off with a corner outfielder guy. And, Mitch Haniger out of Seattle. It's a guy who's a power threat, right-handed bat. To me, reminds me a lot of what Adam Duvall brought to Atlanta over the past couple seasons. That might be a fit. I just looked at Duvall's stats. He's only batting .204, but he's got 12 home runs and 46 RBIs. So he's just a run producer.
But isn't he batting like 450 in Truist Park this year?
Yeah, he's batting 500 in Truist Park. Exactly. A couple starters, one in particular for me, he was named as he's a guy that has kind of been named and floating around. Alex Anthopoulos has obviously ties with him when he was in Toronto and then traded to Detroit is Matthew Boyd. It's a lefty who has, kind of found some success with his newfound changeup. Listen, I think at some point you have to realize, and this kind of brings us as we close out the show, is the bottom line, Atlanta has an ownership problem. That's the big thing. We can gripe, we can go on Twitter, we can get into the comments, but the Braves have an ownership issue. I was having a conversation actually with my dad, who grew up, and obviously, Ted Turner. When Ted Turner took over, it was a local person that was invested in that, and we've seen this across the lines. And it kind of clicked for me, guys, as Braves fans, people who follow the Braves. We've seen the issues across Major League Baseball with ownership, most notably the New York Mets. Okay, that's been the big one. And what does Steve Cohen do? He becomes almost like a fan. It's almost like a fan running the team, and he injects money into it. And so we can talk about these things, but I think that the Braves overall have an ownership problem because Liberty Media, it's just a bottom line. It's just a number. They give them a figure, go out there and put together a team. It's not somebody's invested. And so I would open this to both of you. We'll start with Will, then go back to Ralph to close it out. Is the biggest thing is when you look at the elite teams who have dominated history. I mean, you think of the Cashman and the Steinbrenners of the Yankees. You think of the Red Sox when they were putting together their run to try to reverse the curse. The Dodgers. I mean, these are people that are heavily invested into the team, and the Braves lack that right now. And what the sad thing about it is the Braves, talent-wise on paper, probably have a top 6 roster. It's just, especially it's very top-heavy. They have some of the great superstars of the game, but they're falling short because I feel like of some ownership decisions. And you can tell, I really encourage you to subscribe to The Athletic and read that interview. Alex Anthopoulos' hands are tied. He can't make some of the moves. He said they're gonna have some salary increases to play with in the trade deadline. But the big thing is, guys, and we talked about this, and Will, you said it. You can have Fried, you can have Soroka, but this offseason, if somebody's sitting out there and it's a number 1, you can't get in a bidding war with the Dodgers and the Yankees because your hands are tied.
Yeah.
Even the Nationals. I mean, you don't think about the Nationals,
yeah.
Patrick Corbin, Max Scherzer. I mean, those are massive, massive contracts. But, the only thing I really want to say about the Braves ownership problem is what's so frustrating is Liberty Media, they have a guy that they put out there to talk about the Braves, go on TV because, people are going to ask him about the Braves. And he says every year, they can there's no limit. They can spend whatever they want as long as they win. And that's obviously not the case. Everybody can see right through that. Everybody sees what the moves the Braves make. And, that's just kind of the Braves style is to build your farm system and build with what you got. But, it's frustrating to see a guy say one thing publicly in the winter, and then over the years, every single year, nothing changes.
Yeah, the big thing about it is Anthopoulos is in a situation where he can't just go out and just blast the media. You know what I mean? Say he can't go out and blast ownership. Ralph, for you, I think that's you talked about. It's frustrating to see because this team has the talent to win a World Series. Like Will said, they were a game away. If they would have added a pitcher, brought back some of those guys, they really could have done it. Now, obviously, what's lacking right now is the execution on some of those guys. So you can't really fill that. But I mean, I think just in general, when you see what other teams line up in the postseason, Atlanta's almost there with their homegrown talent. But to me, going outside and picking up a big number 1 starter would definitely push them over the edge.
I mean, yeah, if you can go get your number 1 starter in free agency or in the offseason, you should have done it in the first place. But, if Liberty Media won't let them, spend that much money and Anthopoulos is sitting there like, I can't do what you want me to do with the money you're giving me, you're sitting there stuck and you're looking at the same team every single year with no elite starter. You signed Cole Hamels and Felix Hernandez last year, expecting them to be your veteran starters, and neither one of them pitched. So, I mean, obviously last year with COVID, Hernandez didn't play, but you signed those 2 guys expecting them to help you out, but they never got to play because of COVID or one was injured the whole time, and Cole Hamels didn't come back. So really, they spent money for no reason on those 2 guys, and that's just a waste of a position or of money. It's just why do that? Why go ahead and sign 2 guys who aren't going to play, who are older and they're veterans now? Go ahead and get you someone new and who can throw hard, who can be consistent, who can be there for the next 2 or 3 years and help you make a World Series run. But when you don't get that kind of money handed down to you to spend that kind of money, you're stuck.
Yeah.
I mean, look at the Dodgers. I think the Dodgers are the perfect model because the Braves kind of want to do what the Dodgers do. The Dodgers, the majority of their roster is homegrown talent.
Yeah.
Seager, Kershaw, Buehler, Bellinger, Will Smith, their catcher. But they know when to spend money and where to spend it on. Mookie Betts, going out and getting him, needing that bat in the lineup. Max Muncy, which I know he was a revelation. Nobody could have expected that when he got there, but he's been
Justin Turner.
Justin Turner. They needed a third baseman. They went and got Justin Turner, and they had to fix him too. So that one's a little bit different. But the Dodgers know when and where to spend money. Like they went out, they gave Will Smith a big contract. They give him Blake Trinan a big contract, another relief pitcher. They know when to do it.
Yeah, and like what you said, I mean, remember a couple years ago when Corey Seager went down with an injury, what they say? Oh, we'll go trade for Manny Machado.
That's right.
I mean, this is what this team did, and I think it's frustrating because Atlanta, like you said, they've got half the formula. Okay, they've got the homegrown talent. Because I'm telling you, like the fact that they had Ronald Acuna Jr. and Ozzie Albies in the same, like almost the same years coming up, and then you talk about the pitching, it's ridiculous. Like you can't fault what the scouting department and the developmental staff has done. Now Atlanta they got to make the move, but I would also caution fans in saying, hey, the window's not closed. Like, but as long as Ronald Acuna Jr. is on the roster, they're going to be fine. Like they will be. It will be. And there's still brighter days ahead. We'll say a couple of those guys.
Have you watched the Angels lately?
Yeah, I would say Atlanta's.
Playoffs.
See, I would say Atlanta's in a better situation than Los Angeles, though, because Los Angeles' farm system is not very good.
That was a bold statement you made, though. If Acuna's on the roster, Braves will be fine.
Yeah, as long as 3 or 4 of those guys are on the roster, then they're going to be okay. But
Acuna, Albies, Swanson, Riley, they're not going anywhere anytime soon.
No, they definitely are not. But hey, maybe the Braves should have signed Hunter Renfroe because he just singled home 2 runs. Hashtag ban the shift. It was literally a ground ball. I'm
a big Hunter Renfroe fan.
Yeah, it's not the sexy signing, but it gets the job done. But hey, we appreciate everyone for watching. We enjoyed talking to you.
He mashes taters. That's all you need to know.
Will hashtag mash taters. That's what we get right there.
Mash taters.
We appreciate it. But listen, we appreciate you tuning in. We got a podcast episode coming out on Friday previewing the College World Series that kicks off in Omaha. And man, it's going to be a fun weekend to watch some college baseball. I encourage you to do that. But we will see you once again live on Monday, and we'll tune into our podcast on Friday afternoon. Good night, everyone. Will, say it for him.
Mashed taters.